Hello, welcome back to whatever this is. Plaguetober? Spook Plague? I'm pretty sure this one is. This particular video will be, let's see, the Aralez. This was requested a couple of times. This is from Mr. NV, or Mr. Neveu, if you will. Here, I think, by the way, the theme of this video is going to be good planning, mediocre execution, maybe, or maybe something like faces are hard, something of that nature. Even looking at it now, like the my goal here was something that I do from time to time, and it's I really want to get better at perspective work. So every so often I'll do this really dramatic, like, fisheye lens sort of thing where I'm trying to, furrow the model down to a single point or something of that nature. Do a lot of foreshortening, that sort of thing. But a lot of things are working against me, which I guess I'll discuss later. But for the time being, I will describe Monster Girl. In this case, the monster in question is the Aralez. Mr. NZ, I was originally going to do this prior to my other one, because the original message was, it is a half lion, half dog with wings and heals humans by licking them. And I went and looked it up, and I couldn't find any evidence whatsoever that it's half of anything. It's just a dog with wings, essentially. Going through and looking at images of it, renderings, and looking at all the text-based information I could find on it, which there isn't much of, it's always just a confused-looking dog. It's a cute, confused dog, and it's pretty much the whole thing. The actual story of the thing in question is, let's see, it's apparently a pre-Christian myth from the area, the sort of this local indigenous, I won't say tribes, but just the people that are indigenous to that area. I don't know exactly how old it is, but saying it's pre-Christian tells me it's probably at least, BC, or maybe a little bit after that, or so forth and so on. I think its earliest date is back to whenever the country itself was founded. But from what I can tell, it goes back a little bit further than that. And some people have used it as evidence that maybe people in the area used to worship dogs. It is unclear. But there's not much associated with them in terms of story. The general idea is just that they are some form of gods that descend down from the mountains that are, in that area, I'm guessing, to lick the wounds of soldiers that have died. And that seems to be more of a recent invention. The original idea seems to be that they were just local gods. These winged dogs were just local gods of some sort. And you could pray to them for intervention. And they would maybe help you in some circumstances. And most of the actual idea of them descending from on high to lick the wounds of soldiers and so forth and so on is actually the result of one myth, from what I can tell. I'm sort of guessing here. Is one... Well, it's sort of a half myth, I think. I think it's based on some form of history. But it's Ara the Beautiful, who was supposedly the first Armenian king, I believe. No, wait. He's sometimes associated with the actual king. Arame of Urartu, or something like that. Urartu. The problem with a lot of these is I cannot pronounce foreign languages. I might be somewhat adequate at using English, which could be argued against in some cases. But whenever it comes to actually doing anything related to any other language, I just fall apart. But Arame of Urartu, apparently, was the actual legendary king of Armenia. And he ruled over the kingdom of Orartu Bianili. Jesus. Languages are so hard. Alright. So the idea with this guy, well, the legend is associated with him, so I don't know what his actual historical, like, what the actual details of it are in terms of the actual, what actually happened, like fact. But the legend of Ara the Beautiful is that there was once a king or a legendary hero of some sort who ruled over the nation of Armenia, or whatever used to be Armenia. And here I decide, I'm going to do this anyways. I'll just make it a cell phone thing again. But apparently there was a lady, a leader of another country called Semiramis, I think. And she became really infatuated with him because he was so hot. He's so hot. And so so she decides, I gotta have this dude in my harem because I'm awesome. I'm Lady Ruler and I want pretty dude in my harem. All my other dudes are like nowhere near as hot. I want hot dude. And that's most of the story. So she asks him, hey, come marry me and I'll like totally bang you. And he's like, nah, I'm like the leader of a nation. Why would, no, I've got shit to do. And so as a result, she gets angry and declares war. And she takes her armies over to his place and they kill him. Even though she's like, take him alive, I want to bang him. We will bang, okay? But for whatever their reasons, her soldiers end up killing him anyways. So to avoid any sort of political fallout, she comes up with this idea of, I'll beseech the gods to revive him from the dead. And from what I can tell, this actually doesn't work, and she may not have even tried to do it, from what I can tell. So what she does is she dresses up one of her consorts, part of her harem, I'm guessing, to sort of look like him. And she insinuates that he has been resurrected from the dead by the gods. And as a result, the political stability of the region remains intact, despite the fact that she was a huge selfish dick about everything. And that's it. That's the story. And like many old stories, there doesn't really seem to be a moral other than, wow, people are shitty. Like, human beings are really shitty creatures. And that's it. And in fact, the winged dog people don't even appear in the story, from what I can tell. It's just that later, it sort of got interwoven, and this idea that the gods will descend from on high, and the local gods are these winged dogs, and it got mixed with this idea of this king that was revived from the dead, this fallen warrior. So as a result, this local myth of the gods will come down from on high to revive you from the dead if you keep fighting sort of originated from out of nothing. And that's it. That's the whole story from what I can tell. I even went on the Armenian version of Wikipedia looking for like resources and stuff, and it seemed to be almost the exact same entry as the English version. So I didn't really find much other than I couldn't tell if it was a translation error or not. Because Wikipedia and Google Translate, I don't speak Armenian. Come on, guys. Come on. But it seemed to be insinuating that maybe there are two well-known gods that descended from on high, which made me think, well, is it like a sun and moon thing? Is that what's going on? But I couldn't tell. It could have just been the way that it was translated, and it translated some of the words into the sons descend, like actual, not sons like daughters and sons, but like sons. The sons descended to revive him and so forth and so on. So I don't know. As far as the actual quality of this drawing goes, you can tell it started out really well in terms of like the body, just trying to get it to be foreshortened and everything. But I keep having this problem. Anytime that I do this, and here I've been doing it for so long at this point that I couldn't really see what I was doing wrong. which is why I always try to stop and then go back to it later to give myself a better impression of what I've been screwing up. So in this case, the more that I added to it, the flatter and flatter the image kept getting. And especially I had this problem with the face. Because if you start like fisheye lensing a body, it looks fine. It's very... It look really interesting and it's pretty cool looking. But whenever you start trying to fisheye lens a face, then it distorts it to a point where it becomes very unappealing if you're not careful. And it's something I've never been particularly good at. I don't practice it enough. And really, if the real lesson here is use references, even if you're doing like a cartoon or something like that. You should use references to give yourself a better idea of what you want to alter about reality in order to make it more interesting looking. And like most of my drawings, this is a case of me just guessing. I'm not using any reference images whatsoever. Like I probably should have used like a photograph if I could find it. And this reason why I usually don't do it is just because I can make a reference image, I guess. I technically have cameras. I used to do that, but it's kind of a pain in the ass, so I just stopped doing it. Or I could go online and just look for random pictures of fisheye lens, upper perspective, girl sitting, and like use keywords like that, and you're probably never gonna find it. Like, ever so often you'll get lucky, but odds are it's not going to be what you want. Even if it's the exact subject that you're looking for, it's not going to be that exact thing. So yeah, the more that I add, and the more, especially whenever I focus on the face, and here, this is like round 2 after I stopped for the day. I came back to it later, and I immediately looked at it, and it's like, whoa, I really let this get out of hand. So here I'm going back and like doing, I'm not shoring up the image so much as I'm like looking at it and drawing back over it and trying to figure out where I went wrong with it. And then I'm realizing, here I start to realize, well, it's not really fitting all the proportions of everything. Like the arms are too long, and then after all this, after I decide, well, I need to reduce the chest size, I need to reduce the size of the limbs, I need to adjust the size of her head, and all this other stuff, I realized after this, we haven't got to it yet, I realize, oh, I'm just flattening the image again. I'm turning it from a perspective image into just a generic flat image, which I do every time that I do this. Because I end up not succeeding with the lensing, because I didn't reference it enough, I guess. Or it's because I'm not aggressive enough with my lensing, because I'm trying to make it look too pretty. And I'm afraid of distorting the face too much, which ends up causing the entire thing to flatten out. So, as a result of that, because of that flattening, I end up either just making a generic image or something that is only slightly lensed, which is this is my problem with this drawing, how it actually ends up. It gets better than this, but I never really quite get that initial fisheye lens perspective shot that I succeeded with the body in like the first few seconds of this video. Which is unfortunate. But that's what happens, right? Especially whenever you're trying to bang out an image as quickly as you can in the space of like 5 hours or 6 hours. This was done over a period of like a couple of days, like most of these drawings. Even though it's only 5 hours or 6 hours, like most of my drawings usually take about 9 hours, I guess, total. If I'm doing like a complete image anyways. If I'm doing a sketch, it takes way less time. But even though it only takes that amount of time, it sounds like, oh, well, that's just one workday, right? You can just sit down and bang that out as quickly as you can. And by the way, right here, I opened up the original image in Paint Tool Psi 1, which I had to stop using because it fucked up its tablet detection. So I ended up having to move on to 2, which is what I use in these videos. Is Paint Tool Psi 2, technically, is what it is. And here, this is me refixing the image after realizing, oh, this is where I succeeded with the original drawing, and this is where I'm failing with the new one, but I'm also succeeding with the new one in this other area. So I ended up sort of making a hybrid of the 2 images. So it's a little bit lensed, but it's not too lensed. And this is the final version, I'm guessing. But yeah, I was going through and reopening it in a different program entirely, which is why it looked weird for a split second. So yeah, don't do that. Try to avoid doing things like that. Um, Whenever you're doing your here, I was trying to figure out exactly what the range was. Um, Whenever I first started doing this, you could tell the first part I couldn't quite figure out how to do the whole muzzle thing, because one of the reasons why I typically stay away from dog girls is because of the muzzle. Like, if you don't draw the muzzle, typically you have to rely a lot on. There's a video I was talking about. I think it was a Colo stuff where he does his army doggo stuff, which is super cute, by the way. But I was talking about how he, and just people in general, not specifically him, use cheat angles. Like, you only draw the characters from one specific angle because they're actually like three-dimensional objects, and if you were to draw them at an angle that is not endearing to their character model, then you would notice immediately, oh, this looks really weird. Because, as I said in that one, as humans, we're actually... Like, whenever I draw these girls, I always view them as being modified humans. Whereas a lot of, like, furries will want to draw... Like, they want to draw a dog that just so happens to also be standing up and walking around and it wears clothing, and which personally I find fucking weird. Which might sound like a weird distinction, a hypocritical critical distinction to a lot of people. But to me, it's a very important one, and it's the difference between it being really bizarre looking to me and just being like, oh, well, that's cute. And, that's it. So whenever I'm designing these things, usually I'm coming from the approach of, I want this to just be sort of a cutesy version of a real, like woman, like an actual person. And again, to me, it's not even really like a sexual or anything of that thing sort of motivation. It's more just, it's one of those weird art things where you don't even really think about it. It's just, I like drawing things in this specific way, and I like the cute result you get from it. And if you think it's hot, well, alright, if you want to. But especially with this one, there's no hot component to it. It's just a dog lady, and that's the extent of it, and that's it. And that's my goal, just to make a cute drawing of a dog lady. That's it. So whenever I was drawing the face specifically, I couldn't quite figure out, because of those cheat angles that I'm talking about, where you draw a character from, say, like a face shot of slightly from the bottom perspective, like maybe 20% degree tilt to the side, something like that. That way you can draw the muzzle and the eyes at the same time, it intersecting, hiding the other eye, and it's dramatic enough that you don't really pay too much attention to it. And also, if it's cartoony enough, you especially won't notice it. But if you make it a 3D model, then it loses that sort of drawn appeal to it. And if you actually try to draw over a 3D model with those unappealing angles, then it starts looking really bizarre. So whenever I was first starting out with this image, I was thinking, well, do I want it to be... Because normally I draw things in this weird sort of, it's not realistic, but it sort of borders on more realistic proportions sort of thing. That's my... typically how I draw. That's my style, I guess. But I was thinking, well, should I draw this one as more of a, like an Animal Crossing sort of style? Should I draw it more of a... Like, should it be more cartoony? And at the beginning, whenever I was doing the faces, you could tell that I was doing that. Where I just could not figure out what exactly I wanted to do with the character. With the model. And, eventually I settled on this, and I'm using a cheat angle on this. I'm having the character look directly at the viewer, so that I don't have to draw the muzzle extending out from the face, because I don't like the look of that. It's too alien looking. So as a result, I can, like I was saying, I draw them as being modified humans. And whenever you look at a human face, you're not actually seeing it as, oh, eyeball, bone nose ridge extended over by flesh, and like you're just, your eye and your brain, your human brain just recognizes faces and everything. We're programmed to be that way. If you showed a drawing to an alien, they may not even recognize it as supposed to, like it's supposed to be a life form. Really, they may not even be able to see it because their brains might not work the same way. I have no idea. So whenever you do things like draw a circle and then put a dot and then another dot and then below it like a little half circle that looks like a smile, then the human eye can look at it and go, oh, it's like a little smiling face guy. Like it's an Adventure Time face or something. And that's all it takes. And the same thing extends to simplifying features on a model like this, where I can just put that little dot nose there, and just a few little insinuating lines on the side, and your mind fills the gap and just assumes, well, that's a nose. That's where the nose goes. It's not a fully rendered nose, and I'm going to assume that there's probably a muzzle there, but my human eye also does not see a muzzle, so I'm not really thinking it's too weird looking. And that's sort of my approach to drawing these sort of anthro characters most of the time. If I ever start straying from that too much and it starts getting too realistic again, it starts getting really weird looking, which I don't like at all. And here we've gotten to the portion where we're doing color. There were two inspirations that I was doing with this. Let's see if I can remember correctly. The first is I was looking for dogs that are from the area, and then I realized, oh, of course, a Caucasian shepherd dog. And I thought of that immediately because we have dogs, the ones that are constantly boofing in my videos despite my wishes. Those are actually a crossbreed of a Caucasian shepherd dog and the big ones, the big doofy ones that are like really easygoing. Mastiff, English Mastiff, I forget what it is exactly. But those dogs are next to useless. They constantly bark at nothing. They're really dirty too. Like they're always getting into something, and for some reason they have these weird problems with their ears, where they're constantly, I guess they're also like play fighting, like tugging on one another's ears, and they get like bugs biting them or something. So we're constantly having to treat them and stuff like that. Like, no, stop picking at it. It's that sort of problem where we're constantly having to deal with it with them. We need to put some cones on their heads or something. So they have sort of weird little, they have weird behavioral tics, which I don't know if that's coming from the Caucasian shepherd dog side or not, but anyways, they have this very distinctive look about them. And there's another dog from the area that's sort of well known, and I think it's called a Gamper, and it's just an Armenian dog breed. I think it's actually just called the Armenian Gamper. And it sort of almost looks exactly the same as a Caucasian shepherd dog. It's not actually recognized as being a breed, I don't think, though. Because it is like just a sort of local, sort of a indigenous breed, and there's no regulation for it. So as a result, you could find one that looks almost nothing like another one, but you can still tell that they're from the same area and the same sort of genetic group, I guess. So they're sort of a breed, but they're not. Personally, I think the whole dog breed thing is kind of stupid and probably really harmful. Like, I can't think of the number of times I've gotten in arguments with people. It's like, stop breeding these horrible creatures. Like, they're breeds because they're severely inbred. That's what they are. They're just extremely inbred animals. And they have severe health problems because they are inbred. Stop doing this. And of course, most people's reactions are, oh, but they're so cute, though. I love them. Like, it doesn't matter if you think they're... Like, that's the whole problem. Like, people are creating these horrible abominations that live lives full of suffering because you can't, like, separate you. Oh, you're so cute. Like, fucking stop that shit. Anyways. Some dog breeds are healthier than others, thankfully. I was reading some article recently, actually, about the guy that came up with the Labrador Poodle, or Labradoodle, whatever it's called. And he was lamenting how he regrets ever doing it because it harmed real breeders. It's like they have health problems, and like, I was thinking, you're doing the same thing. Like, more importantly, the breeders are actually much worse than what you did. Like, you just took two breeds that are very distinct, or like genetically they're, like just they're severely inbred because they're a breed, of course. And you're taking two of them and making them more genetically varied, at least. And sure, they might have temperament and genetic problems, but that's not because you did something to them. I mean, it's fine that they have more genetic variation. They're at least healthier than their original components happen to be. There's that. But you're lamenting the fact that real breeders are somehow better off than you are? Like, that's stupid. You're being stupid. Stop doing that. Stop being stupid. But anyways, just dog breeds, huge mess. The whole concept of breeds in the first place, and this is the most esteemed breed. No, it's just a fucking inbred thing that fucked its mother at some point. And that's what it is. Like, there's nothing esteemed about any of it. It's just, they're just garbage animals. Like, stop treating them like there's something, like, truly special and unique. They're just inbred. They're the country bumpkins of the dog world. You made them that way. You created this. It'd be like if someone ran out into the Appalachians, to the people that supposedly are they're not inbred, but ran out to the Appalachians with the joke, rednecks inbred, and then they're like, yeah, but this redneck, oh, he's so beautiful. Like, he's been specially bred for centuries with his mother and his grandmother to create just the perfect breed of redneck. Like, fuck you. Jesus. I don't like abuse towards animals in any form. So especially the dog breed things where they're actually acting like it's something noble really just pisses me off for some reason. But anyways, this particular dog girl is not inbred. She's very much so a product of a nice, godly, wholesome love between genetically varied people of all races and creeds over the centuries. That's what she is. We're getting towards the end here. Something I wanted to mention, I wanted to give a shout out to, I'm not going to draw this monster, but in the first video, Vical or Vical left a message saying, here in Argentina and some other South American countries, we have the Pombero or Pombrito. And I wanted to give a shout out to this particular description because he says, he's like a dwarf elf thing. He likes to drink beer, wine, and smoke weed. Sometimes brings fortune, sometimes misfortune, depends on his mood. I was thinking, wow, what a monster. That doesn't sound like a monster so much as just some asshole. He's a dwarf elf thing that likes to drink beer, get high, smoke weed, and sometimes he's an asshole and sometimes he's not. That's not a monster. It's just like, that's just like Franklin, like the guy that you know. And he's just being a dick. A lot of the monsters, I've mentioned this before, a lot of them are just the monsters that we are as people. There are so many. Like, I hope that you guys have... I hope that a lot of you realize that the actual motivation in doing this is not Monster Girls. It's more, I did the whole, I want you to research your local, like, legends, local, like, myths and things like that. Because I wanted you to learn more about your local, like, areas. I wanted you to come to a deeper appreciation of things like the things that indigenous tribes believed before your local settlers got there, like in the case of the Americas, or things of that nature. Just, I want you to have a greater appreciation of your own heritage, whatever that happens to be. And I can't tell you what that is. The only thing I can do is encourage you to discover it yourself, and then tell me what you thought was exciting about it. And I really enjoyed that aspect of doing this over the past month. But But anyway, in the course of you guys exploring all the stuff about your own local stuff, and showing it off, I hope you've also have noticed that there are so many monsters that are just a guy. Like, it's just a lady, and she's dirty. Like, I can't think of... There's so many in the comments that were just like, this is the story of... And it has some complicated name. And then they describe what it is, and it's like, she's just a dirty lady that people don't trust, and she lives in the woods. And supposedly sometimes she'll murder a kid or something. That's the whole monster. There's so many that are clearly not... There are so many that are very clearly not meant... They're not designed to be monsters or anything of that nature. It's just, there once was someone that people didn't trust, like me. Like, a lot of people from where I'm from probably, what the fuck does he do, fucking weirdo? Because I don't like people. Like, think of the amount of... Like, whenever I think of witches... Like, stereotypical witches, I know that those supposed witches were actually just some, like, jaded lady that was pissed off at the world because she thought, man, people are so shitty. I just want to get away from them. So she decided, I'm going to go out in the woods and just mind my own goddamn business. And hopefully people will just leave me the fuck alone. And sure enough, all the stupid assholes that they were trying to get away with, like, one day, like, an icicle broke the wrong way, or a bumblebee farted in the woods or something. And then all the ignorant townsfolk, oh, witch, the devil is among us. And then they, like, started thinking, well, who's been doing this? Who's been making icicles break? Who made the cow hit me? Who made everyone think that I'm committing adultery with this hot lady? I would never do that. My wife knows that, don't you? He would never do that. See? He would never do that. I would never do that. It must have been a witch. And then I think, who's weird? Who's weird around here that doesn't fit in with everyone? They've probably been doing some shit we don't know about, right? And so they track down the lady in the woods that's just like, please leave me alone. Just leave me the fuck alone. And they show, you're a witch. And I'm sure the first thing that goes through their heads is like, oh God, I knew it. I knew it. I knew I could not get away from you stupid inbred assholes, you dumb dog breeds. And that's what I think of whenever I think of all these like local myths and legends and monsters that supposedly people were. In some cases, they seem to be, they were probably inspired by a local murderer or something. But in a lot of cases, it's just, there's a weird guy that we normies don't really understand, so we're going to assume that they're a monster or a witch, or that they're in league with the devil, or something other stupid, because we're dumb, ignorant people that are just afraid of everything that we don't understand. But maybe I'm projecting, because that comes up a lot with me. Just, people that like to be left alone have to deal with a lot of shit from stupid people, because they don't like interacting with other people, and so as a result, people start imagining things about them that don't exist, and as a result, they get turned into monsters of this sort. Maybe one day I'll become a monster. Who can say? Maybe I am one already, you know. I don't know. Here's hoping, here's hoping. We'll just have to wait for the robots. Then I can get my brain placed inside of a mighty computer of some sort, and we'll just have to generate an alternate reality where I am one. I don't know. Maybe I'm projecting my own future hopes and dreams. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. All right. Time for me to stop being weird. I'll probably be able to get one more of these out before I'm done with this. So, again, submit your local wishes and fetishes or whatever's going on with you guys. Your local witch that was actually just a lonely lady that wanted to be left alone. Stories of that nature. In the comments below, I'll pick one last one, and then we'll take it from there. See you guys then.